In this video, we will show you how to replace your front strut on this Honda Civic. This is part of your front steering and suspension, located behind your front wheel. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we have to do, safely raise and support the vehicle so the wheel's off the ground. I like to have the suspension hanging. Once you've completed that, we're going to remove all 5 of these lug nuts using a 19mm so we can remove the wheel. With the wheel out of the way, let's continue on with a 32mm to remove our axle nut. Now we're going to break the axle free from the wheel bearing hub. A couple light taps with a hammer and punch for this. Once you have movement from there, we can continue on. Let's move along to where the front sway bar link connects to our front strut. You're going to find you have a 14mm headed mounting nut. In the very center of that mounting stud for the sway bar link itself, you're going to find that you have a port for a 5mm Allen head. Now for this, typically I like to try to break the nut free using an air tool. I'm using a 14mm. Once I get a little bit of movement here, we can continue on. Let's get our socket in here. We have some movement now. You want to make sure you try to drive that socket in there as far as possible. If there's any rust or miscellaneous debris, it's going to obstruct it and more than likely it'll just strip out. I'll be using a 14mm and I'm just holding that socket with a ratchet. The socket off of there. Now we should be able to slide this out of position. With that out of the way, let's continue on to dislodging our front brake flex hose from its mounting bracket attached to the front strut. We'll be using a 12mm here. After dislodging the brake flex hose, let's pay attention along the front of the front strut here. We also have our ABS wheel speed sensor wiring. For this lower clip here, we're going to be using some long nose pliers. It has 2 locking ears along the back side. I'm just going to squeeze those in and this should be able to push out and through. Just a quick inspection of that. If this clip is broken for any reason, you can use a wire tie to re-secure this during the installation process. Now we're making our way all the way up to the next mounting point. This one has 2 locking tabs along the back side as well. Long nose pliers, reach right in there, dislodge it. This is looking good. It's time to separate the front knuckle from our lower portion of our front strut. You're going to find that you have 17mm headed bolts making their way from the rear towards the front of this area. And on the forward side, you're going to have a 19mm nut for each one of these mounting bolts. Something to pay attention to during the removal process here. Once we do have both of them out, we're going to have to start pulling this away. So we also need to pay attention to our axle, confirming it's pulling out and away from the bearing as we continue pulling this away. Just leave this one in here for now. That looks good. We'll make sure we're pushing the axle out through this area. As I mentioned, we do not want to put a tug on our axle. That can cause damage and it might need replacement. There we are. Now we're just going to hang this aside, making sure we put no pressure on our ABS wire or brake flex hose. Just hang it aside. You can use a bungee cord if necessary. Let's make our way up inside the engine compartment. Now up along either side of the engine compartment is where you're going to find your front strut tower. We're going to have to make our way underneath this wiper cowl. Now for this, we're pretty lucky here because Honda actually put a small trap door that you can easily remove. After you remove that, we can have a peek inside this area and you can see the 3 upper mounting nuts. We'll be using a 14mm for each of these. You can see one out in the open here, and the other two are right inside this area, a little bit more difficult to gain access to. Let's start with this one out here. We're going to fully loosen it, a quick inspection, and then we'll start it back on a couple threads. Moving along to the next two. We've got that one started back on. For the next two, I'm going to be using a ratcheting wrench. It's easiest if you go ahead and remove this small rubber plug up along the top. So for that, I'm just going to pry it up and out of place. You can do it by hand as well. When using the ratcheting wrench, I'm also going to be using a small prying device just to hold this down while I continue on. That one's pretty much off of there. Last one. Once again, if you need to, you can hold it down with a pry bar. Now, when we go to remove that final mounting nut, let's make sure we're holding onto the front strut. Let's get this off of here and we can pull this out of place. As we bring this down, be extremely careful not to cause any damage to your brake flex hose, ABS wire, or front axle. There it is, friend. Let's clean up the upper mounting point here. I'm just going to use some compressed air. Just make sure there's no miscellaneous debris up along this point, so when we're tightening down our mounting nuts, nothing's in between the area. Okay, friend, let's get ready to install our brand new front strut. We'll make sure we have the proper side. Looking along where the sway bar link should mount, you're going to find that you have an L for the left-hand side and an R for the right-hand side. Let's start putting this in position. Inside the fender well here, we're going to bring it up and start on our mounting nuts up inside the engine compartment. There we are. Looks like we've got this up and through. Let's continue on with our 3 mounting nuts. Just go ahead and start them on. We'll snug them up. Now it's time for the next 2. Let's get the next one in there. I just have a magnetic fingertip glove on here. Should be able to get it in. You can also just use a pocket screwdriver with a magnet, whatever's best for you. The hardest part's just getting these started. After they're started, you can snug them up. We'll be using a 15mm to snug these. The torque is going to be 44 foot-pounds. Now that these are snug, let's pause here. We're going to have to make our way back into the wheel well to continue our assembly down there. And afterwards, we'll make our way back up here to torque these. Now we're going to start getting the knuckle in place. When doing so, we need to pay attention to our brake flex hose and our ABS wheel speed sensor wire, confirming that they're making their way along the outside here, so we'll be able to mount them as needed. If you have them on the wrong side of the steering knuckle, they could potentially get pinched, damaged, or just be on the wrong side and then you have to take it all back apart again. We've confirmed that we have it on the proper side of the steering knuckle here. Let's go ahead and bring this up into position. While holding it up, we're going to take one of our 17mm headed mounting bolts. We'll start it through from the rear towards the front. We've got the next mounting bolt here. 19mm headed mounting nuts. Once they're bottomed out, torque each of these to 125 foot-pounds. time to resecure the ABS wheel speed sensor wiring harness. We'll just go ahead and start mounting this into each one of its mounting points, starting along the front side of the strut here. Just press it in. Now it's time for our brake flex hose. I'm replacing my mounting bolts. Start it in, snug it up. It's bottomed out. Make sure that's nice and snug. It's not twisted in any way. That looks good. Okay, now we can mount the upper portion of the sway bar link into the port on the front strut. Just go ahead and slide it straight on through there. We'll continue on to starting on the mounting nut. The torque for this will be 29 foot-pounds. Now it's time to install our axle nut. Let's start this on here. We're going to carefully bottom it out by hand using a hand tool. Never use an impact tool installing your mounting nut. You can cause damage to your bearing. To be able to torque this, we're going to get it a little bit closer to the ground. We'll be holding it still using either a pry bar, or we can have a second person holding the brake pedal, and we'll torque this down. We'll install our pry bar in this area across our lug studs, confirming we are not going to cause any damage. We can continue tightening this to 133 foot-pounds. Once you have it torqued, the next thing we have to do is lock this down. If you're looking at the axle shaft itself, you can see that it has a small notch in it. This can be facing in pretty much any direction, and you can spin it as necessary. We want to make sure we peen this down into that notch, making sure that the nut cannot loosen up while we're driving down the road. There we are. One last quick inspection in this area, and we can reinstall our wheel. Once you have your wheel in place, start on all 5 of your 19mm lug nuts. We'll bottom them out. Get the wheel safely on the ground and torque each of these to 80 foot-pounds. Now we've got the wheel back on the ground, we're going to torque these to that 80 foot-pounds in a crisscross manner. Torqued. Okay, let's torque these. Now for the next 2, I'm going to be using this crow's foot. It's got an open end on it. It can be difficult to get everything to stay together. I'm just going to apply some downward pressure. There's that one. On to the last one, all the way on the far rear corner there. Once you have all 3 of those torqued properly, we'll continue on with installing this along the top center of the front strut. It's going to help keep moisture out of that area. Press it down on there as far as possible. Let's reinstall our rubber cover. We'll slide it into position, starting with the bottom, and then roll the top in as well. Just want to make sure it's completely seated. Okay, friend, we finished the installation of one side of our vehicle's front struts. Whenever you do these, you do them as a pair. After you've completed the other side of the vehicle, which has the same exact service procedure, make sure you take your vehicle for a road test down to your local alignment shop. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.